Okay, this better work. I'm telling you, this better work because it's all I got. And if I can't do this show, I'm going to eat an entire birthday cake. I'm going to sit in the bathtub eating an entire birthday cake. If this doesn't, is it working? Can you hear me? Because if this doesn't work, I'm going to draw a hot bath, put on my shower cap, order a birthday cake on DoorDash, wait for it to arrive, and then I'm getting into a hot bubble bath. And I'm just going to stew in that bubble bath, eating an entire birthday cake, watching The Housewives until I pass out. Is it working? Because I'm ready to order the birthday cake. All right, that's what's going to happen. Hi, I'm David Feldman. Thank you for finding me again, I hope. I'm coming to you from New York City, barely. Please, whatever. Just whatever they ask you on other shows, do it for me.
All good.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Because I'm telling you, I'm gonna eat an entire birthday cake, and it's not gonna be pretty. I'm gonna eat all right, here we go. I have a feeling it's not gonna work. I still have a bad feeling. Here we go. Hi. Prince Harry gave an interview with the BBC saying he's never going to speak to his father again. King Charles, any thoughts about your son and or Meghan Markle?
She is a foul-smelling variety pack of dripping lymph nodes and venereal discharges.
Well, that's not nice. I hope you heard that. Anyway, Donald Trump made a surprise appearance at Monday's 77th annual Met Gala, dressed as Sister of No Mercy. And there's First Lady Melania arriving at the Met Gala with her walker, Lindsey Graham. That's what Lindsey Graham is doing these days. He's a walker in New York City for single women. He's Melania's walker. He's her Maurice Templesman. I did that for one person. Okay, here we go. Can you still hear me? Maybe it's better if you don't. Comedian, podcaster, public intellectual, and born-again Christian opportunist Russell Brand was arraigned in a London courtroom charged with assaulting several women. Brand told the judge, "I'm innocent," and finally made me laugh. Brand lives in Florida these days, not in Great Britain, and he has become close to people like Tucker Carlson, who decided Russell Brand is completely innocent. Tucker Carlson said over the weekend that he prays Donald Trump grants Russell Brand asylum in our country. Yeah, asylum for Russell Brand. Forget the innocent women and children at the border, escaping gangs and narco-terrorists, because Russell Brand, he needs asylum. He could go to prison for something as anodyne as non-consensual sex with several women. Well, that's how it works for MAGA conservatives. When they get charged with rape, it's political persecution, because part of their politics is how they treat women. Why are liberals criminalizing my ideological beliefs? Seriously, that is what MAGA Republicans say. Whenever they're busted for anything, for sexual assault, tax fraud, buggering, or staging an insurrection, their default is political persecution. No, you're a sociopath. I don't know if Russell Brand is guilty. We're going to find out. But Tucker Carlson, whose own mother hated him, Tucker Carlson said Russell Brand can't get a fair trial in the United Kingdom because England is now a totalitarian state. Russell Brand is being attacked, according to Tucker Carlson, because he opposed the COVID vaccine. Tucker Carlson saying Russell Brand's arrest is proof positive that England is no longer free. Another political prisoner Tucker Carlson has been championing is Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, The self-described misogynist and former mixed martial artist turned advocate for hypermasculinity, whose podcast, social media feed, and Hustler University, that's what he calls it, Hustler University, encourages men to grab whatever you want. So it may not surprise you, Andrew Tate was arrested in Romania along with his brother Tristan. They were charged with rape and sex trafficking of minors. Andrew Tate is also being sued by 4 women in the United Kingdom, accusing him of rape, strangulation, and threatening them with a gun. Obviously, more political persecution. England, like Romania, locks up their political opponents. So says Tucker Carlson, who lobbied Trump on behalf of the Tate brothers. They're MAGA, and they used their large following in the United States last year to endorse Donald Trump because of his war on modernity. Yes, that's what all of this is about. The Tate brothers, Tucker Carlson, Russell Brand, Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, they hate modernity. And by modernity, they mean women. Immediately after resuming his reign of terror in January, Donald Trump sent his special envoy, Richard Grenell, to Europe and had him lobby Romania on behalf of the Tate brothers. Richard Grenell, by the way, served in Trump's first administration as our nation's first openly gay cabinet member, briefly serving also as Director of National Intelligence, despite having no experience with intelligence, and that goes for both meanings of the word. No government experience other than lobbying it on behalf of China, Iran, and a Moldovan politician turned fugitive. And on top of all that, he failed to register as a foreign lobbyist under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. He briefly served as Trump's ambassador to Germany, where he antagonized so many diplomats, the German government made a formal request to send him home. Well, he did delete some tweets from 2016 because originally he didn't like Donald Trump. In 2016, he had to delete this. Trump is dangerous. Wake up. He's reckless. He deleted it. And another one warning, we cannot trust Donald Trump. This was back in 2016. He deleted it because that's the great thing about people like Richard Grenell and Marco Rubio. They are open-minded, big thinkers, not afraid to compromise their last shred of human decency. Earlier this year, Grenell met with Romania's Foreign Minister Emil Horenzu and is reported to have urged him to recommend the Tate brothers' travel restrictions be lifted until their trial. We're going to find out whether or not they're guilty. But Trump reportedly said, let them leave Romania for a little while before the trial. And so the Tate brothers were allowed to leave Romania. So when you're wanted in 2 European countries for sexual assault, where do you vacation? Obviously, Florida. They came to Florida for a couple of weeks this year, and then they're back right now in Romania for their trial. Be interesting to find out if they're guilty or innocent. That trip to Florida didn't turn out the way they planned. In Florida, a woman is now suing them for defamation and forcing her to do sex work. The Florida Attorney General launched a criminal investigation into the Tate brothers, looking into possible human trafficking and sexual exploitation. Even worse, when their flight touched down at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis said they're not welcome in his state. Wow. When Florida thinks you're a danger to the community, maybe you should do some serious soul searching. Speaking of well-adjusted right-wingers in tune with their own masculinity, Enrique Tarrio had his prison sentence commuted back in January of this year by Donald Trump. It was one of Trump's first acts back in office. You might remember Enrique Tarrio, chairman of the Proud Boys. He was serving 22 years for seditious conspiracy for the role he played on January 6. Yes, that would be seditious conspiracy. Well, after his sentence was commuted, after he was released, Enrique Tarrio returned to Washington, D.C., where he was arrested for assaulting a female protester, but the charges were later dropped. On that very same day, Enrique Tarrio attended a Washington, D.C. event featuring several Capitol police officers who had testified against Donald Trump during the January 6 congressional hearings. Enrique Tarrio screamed at them, challenging one to fight. Tarrio was asked to leave, and he did, and then made his way over to CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference run by Matt Schlapp. You all remember Matt, the junk pounder Schlapp, head of CPAC. This is all in one day for Enrique Tarrio. And he showed up at CPAC, and Matt Schlapp told Tarrio, come on in. You know why? Because Matt Schlapp loves the Proud Boys and the not-so-proud boys. So long as they're boys, he loves them. Now, I want you to Google this because sometimes people think I make stuff up. Matt Schlapp's CPAC event each year in Washington, D.C. is held inside, Google this, the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center. It's a real place. I'm not making that up. See? That I didn't doctor that. That is the Gaylord. For some reason, Matt Schlapp loves the Gaylord. Every year he says to his wife, Mercedes, I want to do it again inside the Gaylord. Matt Schlapp says the Gaylord is the perfect size, not too big, not too small. When I'm inside the Gaylord, it feels packed, but not so crammed. It gets filled to the brim and starts spilling out into the streets. Google it. CPAC, Matt Schlapp, the Gaylord. That's the name of the hotel where CPAC meets every year, the Gaylord. Anyway, Enrique Tarrio, who not only was invited into CPAC back in February, over the weekend, he was invited to have dinner inside Mar-a-Lago with his mother, chairwoman of the Proud Girls. I don't know if that's true, but I'm being serious. The head of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, dined with his mother inside Mar-a-Lago this weekend. You're invited to eat at Mar-a-Lago and you bring your mother. Hard to believe a guy like Enrique Tarrio can't get a date. Or maybe that was his date. I don't know, but they were invited by one of the members of Mar-a-Lago. And guess who was eating there as well? Our Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump. And the Mar-a-Lago member hosting Enrique and his mother said to Enrique and his mother, would you like to meet the President of the United States? And they both said, would we? And they were told, okay, stand back and stand by. Wait till the president's finished eating, and then you can storm his table with some bear spray. And they got to meet President Trump. They ended up speaking to Donald Trump for more than 10 minutes, according to the New York Times. The leader of the free world, Donald Trump, had 10 minutes to spare inside the Berchtesgaden with chairman of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, and his proud mother. The Times said Tarrio thanked Trump effusively and said to President Trump, releasing me from prison saved my life. It's endangering thousands of others, but saved his. And Trump reportedly said to the chairman of the Proud Boys, I love you guys. He said, I love you guys. That's what Donald Trump said to the chairman of the Proud Boys. I love you guys. which is useful information for Eric and Don Jr., who always wondered what it would take to hear those exact words from their father. Now they know what it takes to hear, "I love you guys." Mar-a-Lago has become something resembling a salon for free-thinking, violent degenerates. After Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty of shooting to death with his assault weapon 2 Black Lives Matter protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin, injuring another, Donald Trump invited him. Come on in. Come on into my office here in the Berchtesgaden, or Mar-a-Lago, whatever he calls it these days. He met, there he is, meeting with Kyle Rittenhouse. Look at that, right? And after the meeting, Trump was very generous. He called Kyle Rittenhouse a fine young man, even though he only killed 2 out of the 3. And then when Kanye went all in on the Nazi stuff, Trump had him for dinner at Mar-a-Lago. And joining them was one of Trump's biggest boosters, one of the Stop the Steal organizers, self-described Nazi, Nick Fuentes. Yes, Nick Fuentes, a proud Nazi, not ashamed to say it on his show. He had dinner inside the Berchtesgaden 3 years ago with Donald Trump and Kanye. And because she's loyal instead of qualified, Attorney General Pam Bondi just announced the Justice Department has agreed to settle with the family of January 6er Ashley Babbitt, who was shot to death inside the United States Capitol while climbing through a broken window above a barricaded door leading to the Speaker's lobby. You might remember the insurrectionists that day were looking to hang Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence, and you saw what they did to Nancy Pelosi's office. Ashley Babbitt was shot to death, and she became MAGA's Horst Wessel. I remember when it happened, I said, that's their Horst Wessel. Horst Wessel was a member of the Nazi Party's Brown Shirts. He was one of the street thugs who fought with the communists before Hitler became chancellor. Somehow, before Hitler became chancellor, he got shot in the head, maybe by a communist, and died of blood poisoning. After Horst Wessel died, Hitler's minister of propaganda, Frank Luntz, Joseph Goebbels. I always confuse Frank Luntz with Joseph Goebbels. After Horst Wessel died, Joseph Goebbels turned Horst Wessel into a martyr, because you need a martyr to symbolize your party's victimhood. In fact, the Nazi Party's anthem became a celebration of Horst Wessel's martyrdom. I think some of his poetry was used in the Nazi Party's anthem. He was the martyr. You need a martyr. And after January 6th, for MAGA Republicans, that martyr, not any of the Capitol Hill police officers who saved the lives of those Republicans and Democrats. No, the martyr for MAGA Republicans was Ashley Babbitt, killed by a police officer who was trying to save the lives of members of our Senate and House of Representatives. So, thanks to Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is loyal instead of qualified, our Justice Department is now going to settle with Ashley Babbitt's family for $30 million. $30 million. I wonder if this was cleared through the Department of Government Efficiency. I'm surprised Elon Musk, who donates to the Alternative for Germany party, would approve a $30 million settlement with the family of Ashley Babbitt. Ashley Babbitt is the victim of January 6th, according to MAGA Republicans. She was killed by a Capitol police officer who Donald Trump repeatedly refers to as a thug, which is code, of course, for black. Yes, she was killed by a black police officer. And like everything involving these Republicans, it's all about racism. Kyle Rittenhouse shoots to death 2 Black Lives Matter protesters after showing up with an assault weapon. And then, because he's an imbecile, panicked, fearing someone was going to take his beloved rifle away from him, so he started shooting. And he killed 2 Black Lives Matter protesters, injuring one. He's white, invited to Mar-a-Lago after he's acquitted. See? Because the lie is Black Lives Matter protesters were rioting and they deserved to get shot by Kyle Rittenhouse, who, according to MAGA Republicans, is a hero. But Black Lives Matter protesters weren't rioting in Kenosha. They weren't rioting anywhere. Study after study shows all violence, all, was caused by the police or outside agitators. But it doesn't matter. The MAGA machine, the propaganda machine, kept repeating the lie that Black Lives Matter protesters were looting. They were looting buildings. They weren't. Zero evidence. And while the Black Lives Matter protests first began in Minneapolis immediately after George Floyd was murdered, then President Donald Trump declared, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Not, I feel terrible for George Floyd's family. Nope. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. But it wasn't Black Lives Matter that was looting. We all know who was doing the looting, okay? But didn't stop Donald Trump from saying, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That's not a new expression. It means property is more important than black people, who up until 1865 were considered no different from property, at least in the states that voted for Donald Trump. After Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005 and black people were left to either drown or starve, they were warned by New Orleans police, looters will be shot on sight. That's the way it goes. But if it's January 6th, when it's an insurrection, not even a riot, not even looting, an insurrection, and someone gets shot to death by a black police officer keeping our government officials safe, according to Donald Trump, he's a thug and Ashley Babbitt's a martyr. Let's even forget that it was an insurrection. Let's say it was a protest, as Republicans like to say, that got a little out of hand and turned into a riot. How come when the looting started, the shooting can't start? Right? They're looting our Capitol. You didn't hear Donald Trump say when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That only applies to black people in the United States. This is The Mop-Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me. Please like this episode. That way I remain in your feed. Share this episode. Leave a comment. I read all your comments. And what else? Whatever. Subscribe to my newsletter. Subscribe to my channel. Donald Trump was asked about providing due process for migrants by NBC News. He was asked by NBC News about providing due process for migrants on Sunday, and Trump said he's deporting millions of migrants and there's no time for due process. Trump said, no time for trials. No time for trials, says the man who has spent half his life inside a courtroom. Trump was then asked if he feels any responsibility to uphold the Constitution. Trump said, I don't know. He said, I don't know. I don't know if I should uphold the Constitution. You know, the thing you swore an oath to uphold? He doesn't know. You swore an oath to uphold the Constitution the same way you swore an oath to be faithful to Melania, but instead had unprotected sex with a porn star just weeks after your wife gave you a son. So I guess swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution is like a marriage vow. Trump's lost interest in our Constitution and is moving on because our Constitution got old. So he's upholding a younger, hotter Constitution like Russia's. Trump said he has no plans of running in the 2028 presidential election because he's just going to go ahead and cancel it. Now, he did say 4 years will be enough, and then it's time to pass the torch and let someone else set fire to our country. Meanwhile, his idiot son Eric is closing on that $5.5 billion Trump International Golf Club and luxury villa development in Qatar. Wow, what a smart businessman you are, Eric Trump. And you did it all on your own. You did it all on your own. Who are we kidding? They wouldn't even hire you to clean the toilets if it weren't for your father, you brain-dead Nepo fetus. You're not even a Nepo baby, Eric Trump. You're a Nepo fetus. Anyway, Eric is hawking Trump 2028 merch. Well, maybe Daddy's not running. Maybe it's going to be some other Trump in 2028. Who knows? Maybe Don Jr.? Maybe that's what these Trump 2028 hats are all about. Maybe Don Jr.'s running, which makes a little sense that he'd have to be president. The only post Don Jr. could ever fill inside the White House is president, because that's the only job inside the White House that doesn't require a drug test. Everybody else who wants to work in the White House, you got to take a drug test. Well, the vice president. So maybe he can run as vice president. No drug testing for that White House job either. But it pretty much explains, perhaps, why Don Jr.'s never worked inside the White House. At least that's what I've heard. That's what people are saying. That's what I hear me saying right now. Why would I hear myself say this if it weren't true? Well, Don Jr., Eric, Ivanka, time to look at your mother's grave out on the back nine of the Bedminster, New Jersey Golf Club, where she's buried next to Jimmy Hoffa and Ralph Cifaretto from The Sopranos. Remember Ralph Cifaretto from The Sopranos? Nobody knows what happened to Ralph Cifaretto. Maybe witness protection, or maybe something more sinister. Who knows? But this is how Donald Trump buries the mother of his 3 oldest children out on the back nine of the Bedminster Golf Club in New Jersey. No, you guys, go ahead, play through. We're just here mourning my mother and replacing some of the divots on top of her grave. This is how the leader of the free world treats his first KGB handler. Look at this. This is from last year. I pitched this as a commercial for Biden when he was still running for president. And I want you to imagine if Joe Biden's first wife or mother had a grave like this, Trump would be running commercials non-stop showing this to voters. That would make a great Biden commercial if he were running. Well, Biden didn't run, and Trump says he's not running in 2028. That's what he said on Meet the Press. He said J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio would make terrific successors. He is so running in 2028. He's running. It's against the law. Like that's going to stop him. And then he talked about getting older. He said age is just a number. It's just a number that means nothing. Like Donald weighing 214 pounds. It's just a number that the doctor says. It means nothing. He said Bernie's 83, and Trump said of Bernie, quote, I watched Bernie Sanders. He's a nut job, but he's still sharp. He's sharp, the same guy he always was. He hasn't gone down. Well, Bernie has been packing them in everywhere he goes with AOC. They're speaking the truth. And he laid into Trump's plans this week. Bernie talked about Trump's plans for ethnically cleansing Gaza. Bernie said Trump is encouraging Benjamin Netanyahu to uproot 2.5 million Palestinians and move them out of Gaza so he could build luxury hotels, golf courses, and casinos. Trump literally said that. Netanyahu visited this year. And Trump said, you get rid of the Palestinians from Gaza, we turned it into the Riviera. And everybody laughed. But now the Israeli War Cabinet is said to be planning on another full-scale invasion of Gaza. And they're relocating the entire population of Gaza to the southern part of the Strip. At first, it all seems like a joke. Bernie is very clear on Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. No more weapons for Israel. He's also very clear on who the aggressor in Ukraine is. Russia. Bernie said, despite what Trump wants you to believe, Putin is the dictator, not Zelensky, and it was Putin who invaded Ukraine. Bernie Sanders supports more weapons for Ukraine and none for Israel. So, I'm often asked, how do you know what to believe? Well, Bernie, Ralph Nader, Howie Klein, Jasmine Crockett, Elizabeth Warren, Jamie Raskin, Katie Porter, Cori Bush, Pramila Jayapal, and AOC, to name just a few. That's how you do your own research. You listen to people who traffic in the truth. So, do I have any idea how to solve the Middle East or Ukraine? Not really. But I know Bernie does. It's called representative democracy. We elect people who we can trust, not liars like Donald Trump, who told his Secretary of State, stop flying around for world peace. That's what he told Marco Rubio. Stop flying around. His Secretary of State. He said, stop flying around trying to find world peace. That's what Mr. I can solve Gaza and Ukraine on day one is now saying. Forget about it. J.D. Vance, who has no trouble lecturing Europe on freedom and democracy, finally admitted that the war in Ukraine is unlikely to end anytime soon. Trump on Meet the Press saying peace in Ukraine may not be achievable. Well, with you as president, nothing is achievable other than failure. Vladimir Zelensky's wife on a visit to Prague with her husband telling reporters, we pray for peace, not surrender, unquote. See, Trump doesn't want peace. He wants Putin to get everything Putin wants. That's not peace. Trump told NBC News, quote, I want to solve the problem, but maybe it can't be done. No, you can't do it because you're an imbecile. Last year, according to various databases, Trump promised his MAGA morons more than 50 times in campaign speeches, quote, before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after I win the presidency, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. I will have that settlement done within 24 hours. He also promised Hamas would return the hostages on day one, or they would see death and destruction like that region has never seen before. Well, he was half right. There's been death and destruction that region has never seen before. But the hostages released, not so much. And then Trump, And I love this. I love this. He was quick to point out on Meet the Press Sunday, the United States is not at war. But throughout the campaign last year, he kept saying Biden gave us war in Ukraine. Biden gave us a war in Gaza. No, he didn't. But that's what Trump and the Republicans were saying. Biden's war in Ukraine, Biden's war in Gaza, like he told Hamas to attack Israel on October 7th. He told Putin to invade Ukraine in February of 2022. That's what Trump was saying when he was running for president. It was Biden's war in Gaza, Biden's war in Ukraine. Now he's saying, hey, we're not at war. Let's remember, we're not at war, which we aren't. We're providing weapons and intelligence to juice our gross domestic product. But we're not at war. In 3 months, it's gone from Biden got us into a war in Ukraine and Gaza to, well, yeah, it's a war, but we're not in it. Yeah, because you don't know how to negotiate peace. You also don't know how to win wars. You don't know how to do anything. Trump said if Putin won't stop the fighting, he's being stupid. Ooh, tough talk. He added that a total of 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers are dying each week as peace talks remain frozen. Well, that's what happens when you send real estate attorney Steve Witkoff to negotiate peace. Putin last week said he wanted a 3-day ceasefire so Russia could celebrate the 80th anniversary of Germany's defeat, a day that lives in infamy for the Trump family. Germany's defeat. Zelensky said it had to be a 30-day ceasefire, not a 3-day ceasefire, so fighting continues. And get used to fighting all over the world as America under Donald Trump pursues a policy of bombs, not food. Trump's new 2026 budget proposal is out, and he's proposing foreign aid gets slashed by 84%. This is the mop-up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for finding me. We're updating the show. My nephew Leonard did a photo shoot, kind of like a bumper billboard for the David Feldman Show. And look what he did. I said, really good, Leonard. I like that. And then he misspells Feldman, the David Ferdman. I spent all this money on a photo shoot, and he misspells my own nephew doesn't know my last name. God, I hate my life. It's the David Feldman Show, not the David Ferdman Show, Leonard. I signed off on the idea. Then he went and took my credit card and did the photo shoot and doesn't know how to spell his own uncle's last name. Well, as most of you know, with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz out, and he's going to be UN ambassador, he's gone from national security, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has 2 jobs. He's serving as both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor until a replacement can be found. This is White House Communications Director Stephen Chung. Can you see him? He's a little hard to spot. There he is. So Stephen Chung is the White House Communications Director. Think of him as Trump's mouth. And even though he's incredibly busy, like Rubio, he's taken on a new job. That's 2 jobs now, 2 responsibilities. It's a new White House job that might be even more time-consuming than White House Communications Director. On Monday, Stephen Chung was named as the White House's official pancake inspector. Congratulations. A lot of very busy man, Stephen Chung, White House Communications Director and official pancake inspector. Donald Trump's Department of Homeland Security announced on Monday it's paying $1,000 to leave the country. I'll take it. Or is that just for the undocumented? I'll take it. In his budget proposal, Trump asked for a $42.3 billion increase for Homeland Security. $42.3 billion for Homeland Security. Half of that is for ICE, and the other half will be spent on Kristi Noem's eyeliner Sharpies, lash glue, blending sponges, lip liner, and beard neutralizer so she can play dress up. That's your face. It's not a new stucco ceiling, Kristi. Even Trixie Mattel is saying, Kristi, ease up on the spray valve. Trixie Mattel was actually one of my neighbors in Los Angeles. Hated my kids, and rightfully so. Hated my kids. Trixie Mattel. Trump also says he will reopen Alcatraz as a federal prison. When asked about this, border czar Tom Homan, the turd man of Alcatraz, Tom Homan said, well, we need detention beds. Alcatraz is an island. Everything gets there by boat. You know how expensive that is? Idiot. So there's the $42.3 billion Trump wants to spend in 2026 on the border. And there's another border bill Trump just sent to Congress that's calling for $81 billion in spending right now. And yet, he says it's the most secure border in American history. Trump, Tom Homan, the entire White House insisting in 100 days, Trump has given us the safest border in American history, but we still need to spend $81 this year on the border because all we've done is keep people from coming in. We still haven't done anything about them escaping. A lot of us are going to want to get out pretty soon. That's why he wants to secure the border. In this bill, the detention budget for ICE jumps from $3.5 to $45 billion. Well, Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee, like Pramila Jayapal and Jamie Raskin, they were marking up the bill last week, and they called this bill nothing more than a slush fund for Geo Group and CoreCivic, our nation's two largest purveyors of for-profit concentration camps. And CoreCivic and Geo Group donated millions to Donald Trump last year, and now comes the return on their investment. A slush fund for them. Don't forget, ICE is now paying tech giant Palantir $30 million a year to keep track of immigrants. Palantir was founded by Peter Thiel, who founded PayPal with Elon Musk. Thiel helped finance Trump's run in 2016 and gave Trump a lot of money last year after J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel's protege in venture capital, after J.D. Vance was chosen as vice president. After J.D. Vance graduated from Yale Law School, he went to work for Thiel, who went on to donate at least $15 million to J.D. Vance's 2022 Ohio Senate campaign. They're all part of Silicon Valley's new techno-fascist mafia. They don't believe in democracy or humanity. They hate people, including themselves. They're self-loathing. Anyway, Palantir is Thiel's new company. It's big on artificial intelligence and offers products to governments, especially intelligence agencies, spy agencies, or Homeland Security, so these government agencies can rummage through massive amounts of data on people in just a matter of seconds. Right now, the Department of Government Efficiency, run by Elon Musk, Peter Thiel's friend from PayPal, right now our Department of Government Efficiency has access to our government's most secret information on all 350 million of us. Well, you think maybe somebody's turning that information over to an advanced language learning model like Grok or what Palantir is using. I don't know, you think maybe they're creating algorithms that could predict markets before you and I even knew there was a market for what they're investing in? You think that might be going on? I don't know. So there's artificial intelligence, and then there's artificial intelligence. Yes, artificial intelligence. That's right, I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's so much crap inside her skull. If the worm inside Bobby Kennedy's brain crawled into Marjorie Taylor Greene, if the worm inside Bobby Kennedy's brain crawled into Marjorie Taylor Greene's, it would die from cholera. That's how much crap is inside Marjorie Taylor's skull. If the worm inside Bobby Kennedy's brain crawled into Marjorie Taylor Greene's, it would die from cholera and contract polio. That's how much crap Marjorie Taylor Greene has between her ears. That brain of hers is nothing more than a brackish sponge of raw sewage and undercooked mud crabs. Anyway, Marjorie Taylor Greene sits on the House Homeland Security Committee. Marjorie, last month, purchased stock in Palantir, just days before that big announcement that Palantir landed a $30 million a year contract with ICE. They landed that contract on April 18th, a couple of days before Marjorie Taylor Greene bought stock in Palantir. She sits on the Homeland Security Committee. And the Department of Homeland Security just made a deal with Palantir. And sure enough, right after she bought stock in Palantir, it jumped 50%. So is that inside information? Or is it a kickback? I have no idea. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Well, what's going on here? I'm a broken record. Get out your pad and pencil. The United States economy is $30 trillion a year. Our federal budget is $7 trillion this year. What percent of $7 trillion, what percent of $30 trillion is $7 trillion? Then you add state and local government spending. You end up with close to 40% of our entire economy being government spending. The only reason this isn't officially socialism is because $7 trillion of, in Washington, D.C. goes out the door. And all we get in return, if we're lucky, is tax revenue. Our tax dollars pay for research and development on life-saving drugs, which are then handed over to Big Pharma, who thank us by charging us 10 times more than what they charge people overseas. They charge us 10 times more for insulin, which they didn't even invent. It was invented in Canada. Doesn't matter. Big Pharma charges 10 times as much for insulin here in the United States than they do in Canada. The point I'm making is nearly 40% of our $30 trillion economy is what government spends. Evil government. But you can't be a billionaire. The billionaires all talk about the evil government, but they can't be billionaires without two things. One, government contracts. Two, paid lobbyists who rewrite the tax code so these billionaires pay nothing. That's how you become a billionaire. Demonize the government that you're sucking off. Part of Trump's plan for the border includes $858 million on bonuses for ICE agents. because they do such a great job, don't they? Rounding up 4-year-old American citizens with stage 4 cancer and then shipping them off to Honduras. Let's give them bonuses. Jamie Raskin and Pramila Jayapal, who sit on the House Judiciary Committee, said this comes out to a $42,000 bonus for each agent in 1 year. That's the plan, to give the ICE agents $42,000 bonuses this year for 1 year. These guys are so undeserving of bonuses, they should be working on Wall Street. Remember that? Remember 2008? Does anybody remember 2008? When Wall Street literally destroyed capitalism and came begging for what amounted to a $1 trillion bailout from Congress. That was in October of 2008. George W. Bush was president. Killed capitalism. He joked, we're all socialists now. Yes, socialists for the billionaires. So they get the bailout. Wall Street gets the bailout, 2008. By December, 2 months later, they used our money to pay out bonuses. Some of you are too young to know about this. AIG killed capitalism by turning Wall Street into a casino. AIG made it possible for investors, if you want to call that, degenerate gamblers on Wall Street, to place bets on mortgage securities. And then AIG allowed them to cover that bet by betting on the bet. AIG insured the bets. These were called collateralized debt obligations. By the last 2 years of George W. Bush's administration, you didn't even have to own a mortgage security. You didn't have to own a house. You didn't need a mortgage. You could just place a bet on a mortgage security to participate in this crapshoot. You could call a broker and place a bet on a bet that somebody else had bet on a mortgage security. And for some reason, it all came crashing down. Don't understand why. The world economy came crashing down in 2008. Unregulated capitalism. Marx says capitalism implodes on itself. That's what happened. Unregulated capitalism in 2008 killed itself. Thank you, George W. Bush. So the government had to step in. That's something like end stage, not end stage cap. That's the end. It was the end of capitalism. The Federal Reserve bought up a lot of the mortgage securities and the bets, which somehow disappeared from the books. Nobody knows really what happened to those mortgage securities. And we bailed out the people who did this to us. AIG, in particular, we saved AIG. They got $40 billion in TARP funds. TARP was the Toxic Asset Relief Program. That was close to a $1 trillion bailout to save capitalism. So they got $40 billion in 2008 to keep them in business. Within 2 months, after killing capitalism, they paid their executives hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in bonuses. With our tax dollars. With our tax dollars. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. It gets worse, okay? Goldman Sachs also killed capitalism in 2008. They were advising their clients to invest in these mortgage securities while at the same time betting against them. That's what they were doing. They knew these mortgage securities were toxic. They were shorting the mortgage securities while selling them to their clients. Goldman Sachs killed capitalism in 2008. It received $10 billion from you and me in October of 2008. We bailed Goldman Sachs out. 2 months later, 953 Goldman Sachs employees received bonuses of more than $1 million each for 2008. Here's a bonus, a $1 million bonus for killing capitalism. Morgan Stanley gave 428 of their employees seven-figure bonuses. So that's at least $1 million. 101 Morgan Stanley employees got to split $577 million of our dollars. It is estimated that within 2 months of the bailout in 2008, 5,000 traders and executives working for the 9 investment houses that got bailed out, 5,000 traders and executives received at least $1 million or more in bonuses for a grand total of $32.6 billion. Now, I know lately I've been going over math, but it's really adding, subtraction, little division, some percentages. It's basic math. Okay. We gave Wall Street $1 trillion after they killed capitalism. And Wall Street took $32.6 billion of that and paid out bonuses. The top 9 investment firms on Wall Street killed capitalism. And this was going to be worse than the Great Depression. This was going to be a lot worse than the Great Depression if Congress didn't step in and bail Wall Street out to the tune of $1 trillion. By the way, the first time Congress voted on it, they said no. Let the banks fail. That was the first vote in October of 2008 on the Toxic Asset Relief Program. Congress said, no, let the banks fail, and we'll rebuild the banking system. But Pelosi pushed hard for TARP. And we ended up giving Wall Street about $1 trillion in October. I think it was October. About October of 2008. It was right before Obama and McCain had the big election. So we gave Wall Street $1 trillion. Within weeks, they paid their top executives a total of $32.6 billion in bonuses. Now, I'm a broken record here because I'm going to tell you something and your head's going to explode. So $32.6 billion of our dollars in bonuses that year for killing capitalism. $32.6 billion. And then they used the rest of that money to hire lobbyists to weaken Dodd-Frank, to make sure Obama and the Democrats didn't pass any legislation that kills the animal spirits on Wall Street. Don't kill the animal spirits on Wall Street. They used our tax dollars to hire lobbyists to defang Dodd-Frank so Obama wouldn't pass any legislation that would rein in the boom and bust cycles that Wall Street creates. These boom and bust cycles that wipe out families but keep Wall Street brokers, accountants, and of course their lawyers swimming in it. Because they win, they collect fees. You saw, I showed you the Goldman Sachs quarterly statement this year. Their trading desk made something like $18 billion the last quarter just on fees of people panic selling. But it's about the churn, right? So, I'm sorry, but this really pisses me off. Okay. 2008, they paid out $32.6 billion in bonuses for killing capital. They used our money to pay bonuses to the people who killed capitalism. Okay. On the last show, I talked about Bill Clinton's welfare reform. He got rid of welfare and replaced it with temporary assistance for needy families. It's temporary. It hasn't budged in 30 years. We pay out $16.5 billion a year in welfare. $16.5 billion a year. That's what we paid out when Clinton signed the welfare reform bill into law. 30 years later, welfare, temporary assistance for needy families, still frozen at $16.5 billion a year because nobody should get a free ride. Frozen at $16.5 billion a year. Mothers, babies, children. The bonuses Wall Street paid itself after killing capitalism in 2008, twice that. Our money. We had twice that. We had $32.6 billion for Wall Street to pay themselves bonuses, but only $16.5 billion for welfare. And it's the same amount this year. It's frozen, just like the minimum wage is frozen at $7.25. Bonuses. Twice what we pay out in temporary assistance to needy families. 5 worthless scumbags. 5,000 Wall Street scumbags divvied up $32.6 billion of our tax dollars. And they all vote for a Republican because they don't want single moms gaming the system. They could, you hear these scumbags. These single moms, why can't they get a job for $7.25 an hour and work 40 hours and end up below the poverty line? Why do we have to bail them out? So how does this happen? How does this happen, America? The only way this can happen is for the United States of America to be the dumbest people in the history of civilization. We are the dumbest people in the history of civilization. I know you don't like math. I'm really bad at math. I need a calculator for all this. Okay? I'm not good at math. We are the dumbest people in the history of civilization. We're not the wealthiest country in the history of civilization. We're the dumbest. We have a $30 trillion a year economy. Half of us don't participate. Dumb. You're dumb, America. Wait, it gets worse. Donald Trump the capo di tutti capo of stupidity, Donald Trump wants to charge $1,000 for migrants to apply for political asylum. This is in direct violation of international law. Under international law, anyone applying for political asylum must be taken in, taken care of, and given a hearing. You're not allowed to charge them $1,000. But Donald Trump is claiming over a 10-year period, charging people $1,000 to apply for political asylum. He says that's going to bring in a grand total of $748 million over a 10-year period. That would be $75 million a year, which won't even get you an F-14 Tomcat jet fighter. Wait, it gets worse. Donald Trump wants to charge $500 for temporary protected legal status. You know, I like horror movies, and I laugh at horror movies. Horror movies are funny. This is funny. It's a horror movie. It's funny. Temporary protected legal status, $500. Temporary protected legal status, that's what Abrego Garcia had right before the idiots from ICE accidentally shipped him off to that dungeon in El Salvador. Trump claims that he can raise $2 billion over the next 10 years by by charging $500 for temporary protected legal status. He says we'll get $2 billion. That's over 10 years, we could raise $2 billion. That's 1/3 of an aircraft carrier for us to launch airstrikes in the Red Sea, fighting for our democratic values. We could buy 1/3 of an aircraft carrier. I love this. Republicans, Party of Christians, 3,000. I'm sorry. It's a horror movie. It's a horror movie. Donald Trump wants to charge $3,500 for someone here in the United States to sponsor an unaccompanied minor who comes to the United States. It's pretty funny. So, you know, somebody under the age of 18, somebody like Abrego Garcia, he was under the age of 18. He was escaping gangs in El Salvador. Somebody had to sponsor him here in the United States, a good Christian, right? You have to pay $3,500 to sponsor an unaccompanied minor. A terrified, look at this picture. Look at that. You want to help? This is America. You want to help one of these kids? It'll cost you $3,500. That's Trump's plan. Well, and, you know, Tom Homan and, of course, Stephen Miller. That's... Mike Pence received a Profile and Courage Award this weekend. Not a fan of Mike Pence, as you know, but I recommend that you watch his speech on YouTube. And it was very touching. Afterwards, Mike Pence went on a podcast, and this is what Mike Pence said of Stephen Miller, Trump's deputy chief of white supremacy. Stephen Miller, high up inside the White House now. During the first Trump administration, he and Tom Homan came up with family separation. It was Stephen Miller who allegedly said, why can't the Navy shoot the migrants on boats? And Stephen Miller's running policy right now out of the White House. So, like I said, I'm not a fan of Mike Pence, but he did get and deserve the Profile and Courage Award for standing up to Trump and counting those Biden votes late or early January 7th, 2001. There are many things about Mike Pence I find detestable, like his wife, their persecution of the LGBTQ community, their oppression of women, especially their devotion to the so-called right to life movement, their erasing the wall that separates church and state. Detestable people. But not on January 6th. Not on January 6th. He and his wife, not on January 6th. And this is what he said yesterday about Stephen Miller. And when I read this, when I read what Mike Pence said about Stephen Miller, I thought, oh, this must have been what it was like during World War II, when Americans put away their differences and came together to defeat the Nazis. And I got a lump in my throat. I was moved by his speech at the Kennedy Library receiving the Profile and Courage Award. But this is what I may get a lump in my throat reading this, okay? This is one of the most touching statements, and it really moved me. This is what Mike Pence said about Stephen Miller, okay? That's Stephen Miller right there. That's Stephen Miller on the right. Can you see him? That's Stephen Miller on the right. I don't know who he's with, but this is what Mike Pence said. Quote, Stephen Miller is a horrible human being. I think he is someone who has gone all in down the rabbit hole on extremism. And I think in his mind, there would be no migrants, immigrants, or any mixed race in our country, unquote. And for some reason, I get a lump in my throat. When because Mike Pence said that. I don't know why, but I think those are the second most beautiful words ever to come out of Mike Pence's mouth. The first being, the final tally for president is Joseph Biden, 306 votes, Donald Trump, 232 votes. But right after that, what he said yesterday about Stephen Miller is also heroic. And it tells you something about Mike Pence. He may be growing a little. That's what he said. Stephen Miller is a horrible human being. I think he is someone who has gone all in down the rabbit hole on extremism. And I think in his mind, there would be no migrants, immigrants, or any mixed race in our country. That is a beautiful statement, and it reveals where Mike Pence's heart is. I mean, anyway, this is what it must have been like during World War II when Mike Pence, okay, we disagree on a lot of stuff, but when when it comes time to fight the Nazis, we're on the same page. We love our country. It pains me to celebrate Mike Pence, but those are some pretty powerful words that should be carved in stone. It's pretty good. Trump also wants to charge immigrants. Sorry. Trump also wants to charge immigrants $900 to appeal any rulings made by immigration judges that the immigrants find unsatisfactory. $900 to appeal, because that's why they came to America, because they're swimming in money. They have $900 to appeal. $900. Donald Trump easily spent $200 million in legal fees in the past 3 years. Not a single penny of it came out of his pocket. It was all donations to his super PAC. He hoodwinked MAGA morons into sending him hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to investigate voter fraud. And he took it and he spent it on legal fees. Rudy never got paid. But the migrants, they have to pay $900 for due process. Trump told NBC News due process isn't for everyone. This is Trump. This is Trump sitting in court last year. That's his lawyer, Todd Blanche, who is now Deputy Attorney General. And this homunculus is the odious Stephen Miller wannabe, Emil Bove, who is now Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General. They are the worst of the worst. They are the absolute worst of the worst. And by the way, they lose all their cases. As bad as Bondi. How are we doing on time here? Okay. House Judiciary Committee met last week to mark up Trump's border bill. Jim Jordan is the chairman, and he and the Republicans on the committee voted down every amendment to Trump's border bill that was proposed by the Democrats. Republicans voted down an amendment ensuring that no citizens get deported by ICE. This is a serious problem. It's estimated 1% of all the people deported, going back even to the Biden administration, 1% are U.S. citizens. Republicans voted down a measure not to ship immigrants to Gitmo because they're not enemy combatants. And Gitmo is like Alcatraz. It's too expensive. It costs $20,000 per migrant to fly them on a military plane to Gitmo. Then another $20,000 per migrant to fly them wherever. That's $40,000. How about, here's $40,000, welcome to America. Go to Kansas now, or Springfield, Ohio, or any of the thousands of other small and mid-sized communities here in the United States that have become ghost towns, desperate for workers and people to live there and pay taxes. Why do you think these Christian nationalists are saying we need more people? That's Mike Johnson. When you read what the we have to encourage people to have more children. What do they call the natalists? Something like that. The natalist movement, J.D. Vance. We need more children. They recognize the population implosion. If we don't grow our population is going to start shrinking, and then the Ponzi scheme, that is our economy, collapses. So they know we're running out of people, but they don't want dark people, no dark-skinned people. What else did they vote down? The Republicans voted down forbidding ICE from raiding elementary schools and rounding up undocumented children. This is a problem. They recently tried that in Los Angeles, which is a sanctuary city, and ICE was thrown out of the building. This is ICE rounding up, trying to round up fourth graders. This country would be safer if we rounded up ICE agents and placed them in detention centers. What is wrong with these people? What is wrong with you taking a job at ICE? Nobody's forcing you to work for ICE. People write to me, well, I have a brother-in-law. Who works for ICE. He's really nice. Yeah, to you. Yeah, he comes home. He got it all out of his system at work. It's nice to you. The Banality of Evil. Hannah Arendt talked about it. Republicans voted down earmarking 0.5% of the border spending on ICE oversight. No, they don't want any money spent making sure ICE is obeying the law because they can be trusted. Republicans voted against banning ICE arrests inside churches. The Christians, Republicans, voted against banning ICE arrests inside churches. That's what they're doing. They're going into churches, rounding up fathers, wearing ankle bracelets waiting for their immigration hearing, and shipping them off to detention centers in front of their crying children because there's money to be made in filling these detention camps. Nobody's illegal here. There are fathers wearing ankle bracelets, which means they're documented, they're in this country legally, they're going through the process, but Trump needs to put numbers on the board. He's not deporting as many as Biden. And so ICE goes for the low-hanging fruit because they're cowards. They're cowards. Still haven't found one. And believe me, I've been searching. And I don't want anybody to get hurt. Do not want anybody to get hurt. I've asked my listeners, can you find one example of MS-13 or Tren de Aragua putting up a fight when they're rounded up by ICE agents? Can't find it. Every day I look. I've gone back 5 years, cannot find a single example of ICE agents having to get into a gunfight or a physical altercation with anybody they round up. But Donald Trump invokes the Alien Enemies Act because we're at war with the worst of the worst, he says. And he says, we're only rounding up the criminals, like a father with an ankle bracelet praying in church surrounded by his wife and kids. The worst of the worst, a 4-year-old kid who's an American citizen suffering from stage 4 cancer, a pregnant mother. The worst of the worst. How could you work for ICE? How could you do this? Republicans voted down a ban on ICE hiring January 6ers who were pardoned by Donald Trump. Good on the Democrats for proposing that. They know their history. Fascists only stay in power when their military, when their police are violent criminals. So Democrats know. First you pardon the January 6ers, then you invite Enrique Tarrio to Mar-a-Lago, And next thing you know, he's working for ICE. The GOP voted down an amendment ordering ICE agents to identify themselves before making an arrest and not wearing face covering. This is a serious problem right now. We have ICE agents coming out of nowhere in plain clothes, not even saying they're with ICE, and just grabbing people off the street. And witnesses try to videotape these abductions, but because the ICE agents are wearing masks, nobody has any idea who the agent is. Or, more importantly, if they're even ICE agents. There's an epidemic now of Americans pretending to be ICE agents and terrorizing immigrants. Now, Republicans, now ICE agents don't have to identify themselves and they can keep their faces covered. Same Republicans who have spent the past 4 years screaming about the deep, dark state. But they have no problem with ICE behaving this way. How do you know it's an ICE agent? How do you know it's an ICE agent? Because they're arresting a 4-year-old kid suffering from stage 4 cancer. That's how you know it's an ICE agent. It's a coward. That's how you know it's an ICE agent. Republicans voted against funding lawyers for unaccompanied children. Voted down that amendment to fund lawyers for unaccompanied children. Trump and Musk gutted this program this year, and Republicans don't want it to come back for next year. Unaccompanied minors. No legal protection, no legal representation. Think about that for a second. Think about what kind of person would want an unaccompanied minor to come into this country without their mother and father and no lawyer to tell the child what their rights are. And it costs, Trump wants to charge $3,500 if you want to take the unaccompanied minor and give the unaccompanied minor a place to live. It's going to cost, we should be paying people to take unaccompanied minors. Trump wants to charge people for being generous, for being Christian, for being Christians. It's a tax on Christianity. $3,500. You want to help an unaccompanied minor? We're going to tax you $3,500. We're going to tax you for being a Christian. Republicans voted down indefinite detention of families, keeping them in these concentration camps so CoreCivic and Geo Group can boost their quarterly profits. This is surprising. Republicans voted down an amendment banning ICE agents from hanging around battered women's shelters to arrest undocumented battered women. That's what we got going on right now. ICE agents hanging around battered women's shelters so they can arrest undocumented battered women. Well, I figure I was visiting my wife and daughter, and I'd get a little work done at the same time. That's what the ICE agent figures. I'll go to the battered women's shelter, visit my wife, visit my daughters, and I'll get some work done. Round up some undocumented battered women. All right, I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong. and protect the weak. Hang on, we have President Trump. President Trump. Hang on, can I do this? There's the President of the United States, Donald Trump. I think he's sitting on the beach with his wife, Melania. How are you? What do you see?
I see blisters, sores, bumps, blood, redness, and a thick, viscous, foul-smelling fluid oozing everywhere.
Okay. All right. I don't know if you could hear that or not. Why does he have a British accent? I'm losing my mind. Please, thank you to Mila and Bob in the chat room. I should thank them earlier in the show. Thank you to all the people who found me after the show went south because of technical problems. Oh, I had a poll. Didn't I have a poll? Yes, let me check the poll, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Hang on. Can I do this? I haven't done... There are a lot of things I haven't done since Trump began soiling the... let's see. Didn't I? Here we go. Okay, I had a poll. So I asked the people who showed up for the live version after I had to crash out the first attempt. The question is, so is the sound going to work this time, or do I have more reason to hate my life? And there are three choices. More reason to hate your life. How can you fit any more reasons to hate your life inside your skull? Or Kleenex. Those are the three choices. If you haven't voted yet, we have 590 votes. And here's the result of this. So the question is the sound going to work this time, or do I have more reasons to hate my life? 21% said you're going to have more reasons to hate your life. 31% said, how can you fit any more reasons to hate your life inside your skull? And 48%, not quite a majority, went with Kleenex. I don't know what that means. President Trump, let's. What do you see now? You're on the beach with your. What do you see?
I see blisters, sores, bumps, blood, redness, and a thick, viscous, foul-smelling fluid oozing everywhere.
Let me just see that again. Hang on. Mr. Trump?
I see blisters, sores, bumps, blood, redness, and a thick, viscous, foul-smelling fluid oozing everywhere.
All right. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this show. Good night. Thank you. Everything's going to be okay.